you kind of stand out. Like Anne was like, oh my God, like she's like a woman. Like, it's not me that's saying that. Like, by the way, it's Anne who was like, she's kind of just like a nice lady. Like, what the hell? Like, kind of like surprised because this space is like 98% like guys.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious what that's been like for you and what you would say to other women who are interested in theory, kind of
Mhm.
outside looking in, but also kind of like, there's a lot of dudes in there.
No, it's a great question, and thank you. I take that as a compliment to being called a woman.
Yeah.
Um, so,
What you're about to hear is an amazing conversation that took place right before the American Idiots Theory Underground tour in Europe. And it's with Michelle Garner of OG Rose. She's one half of that operation. If you do not subscribe to OG Rose, you can change that today by going over there and subscribing. Michelle Garner is an amazing person, amazing presence in the underground theory scene, and she really helps take things to another level with her intellectual curiosity, her generous. I don't know. There's something about both Michelle and Daniel where they're very generous and friendly and warm and they bring a lot of heart to everything that they do, and I think we really just appreciate them for that. But also, if you look at the quality of their writing and the level of their engagement, what they're putting out is really great stuff. And so, yeah, we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about Michelle being a woman in a scene that is dominated by men. We'll also talk about homeschooling and the nuances of that because Michelle does homeschooling. But I am not all gung ho about homeschooling. Nonetheless, I see some value, and I think there's an important conversation that needs to be had there. And so this is, in a sort of sense, the beginning of that very important conversation. Finally, before I let this actually take off, I just got to say to everybody really quick, there are several really great courses coming up soon. Some have already started and are underway. Others are over and you cannot take them live anymore. But all courses at Theory Underground can be taken after the fact. There's lots of great past courses now available to binge. Stick around till the end of the video to find out information about becoming a monthly subscriber slash member at Theory Underground if you want to get more involved and actually take the backlog of courses. There's all kinds of ways of doing that as a subscriber. You get special access to the things that have happened here, as well as the ongoing seminars. But if you are interested in any of the courses that are currently underway, it's not too late to get involved. Get a hold of us ASAP. Get in there. Yeah, we've got lots of really great courses coming up soon. So stay tuned. And with that, I really hope you'll enjoy this conversation with Michelle Garner. Welcome, everybody, to Theory Underground. It's David Nance, and we're joined today by Michelle Garner of OG Rose. Welcome.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so honored to be here. It's a blessing. I've never had the chance to just talk directly with you guys. I know Daniel has, and he loves that. We were in Spanish club together though, so that was really fun. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
That's that's true. As a tier 3 subscriber at Theory Underground, you get special access to the Spanish immersion exercises that we do on a weekly basis. And
Yeah.
you know Spanish, I think, better than any of us, except for maybe the tutor. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of my majors in college, and I lived in Spain as well for half a year. And I went with my identical twin sister, and we made a pact with each other before we left that we would not speak English together. Like we would not use English with each other, which is kind of hard when you're so habitually used to using a certain language with somebody. It really pushed us out of our comfort zone, but that for good reason. We also lived with my twin sister and I lived together in Spain with a host mom who's amazing, Mari Carmen. She's just an angel on earth. And she didn't speak a word of English except she could say Spider-Man because her grandson loves Spider-Man. So anyways, yeah, it was so cute. But she's an incredible person, incredible cook. She was gracious enough to share her home with us. And so, when you're kind of like jettisoned into speaking Spanish every day and committed to it, it really, yeah, you really learn quick. You have to. almost out of a necessity. And at the university that we had there in Valencia, you couldn't speak English there as well, but that's kind of, that's pretty typical, right? But we sort of stretched it to not speaking English almost ever. So yeah, definitely a challenge, but really a wonderful experience. I mean, unforgettable. And yeah, I love the language. I try to keep it up these days by speaking still with my twin sister. She has a roommate, a housemate from Mexico, so that's also awesome. And then I'll listen to books on tape sometimes when I'm folding and whatnot. And then I incorporate Spanish to teaching the kids as well, which is really fun. And then obviously the wonderful opportunity at Theory Underground. So it's wonderful to have these avenues to continue my Spanish.
Yeah, and that's kind of the theme today. Continued adult education, like lifelong learning.
Yeah.
For homeschool parents, I think is a very important topic that we rarely address publicly at Theory Underground, though it has been kind of a behind the scenes conversation because it matters to me at a very deep level. But really quick, first I have a joke. It's probably inappropriate, so sorry in advance. But I'm asking for a friend. Is your twin married by any chance? I'm just joking.
She's also taken. Sorry.
Oh, dang. Okay. Sorry, guys. Move along. Move it along, guys.
Do we have a sound to make when it's anti pew 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 pew? Do we have
mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, we need that sound too.
I think Nance has.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, actually, and let's start with that though. Let's start with being taken because you are one half of the OG Rose project. At this point, everybody should be very familiar with Daniel Garner if they have been around for the last few months. But for those who don't know, Daniel is this guy. He does this thing called OG Rose. Michelle, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what this project is, how it got started. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. Okay. It's a great question. Thank you, Dave. And again, thank you, Nance and Dave, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So yeah, OG Rose, I mean, it's so funny because when you ask that, I have a flashback scene of being behind this building in Charlottesville that was this kind of creative art community that Daniel and I were part of for many years. And we were just in the back porch. We were either on the front porch usually or on the back porch. So you'd either find us in either of those places, or especially Daniel. I go find him there since, he doesn't use a cell phone. So I just have to find him. And he'd usually be at a library or on the porch at Unoya. So I remember us talking about what to maybe call the work we do collaboratively. So it's just funny because I feel like that it's such a vivid memory of just sitting around this table outside and thinking about what we might want to kind of call ourselves or what type of pen name we might want to have as collaborative writers and creators. So yeah, I mean, I think that our work, it actually started predominantly in fiction, actually. And we still have a lot of that work, which is slowly, making it, appearing here and there. A lot more to come. And in terms of what we have created and looking forward to sharing with the world one day. And, I think that it was always just something where we, I saw it reminded me a lot. I've loved this live streams, by the way, because I've caught most of it and it's been amazing. And it made me think about when you were talking about Anne, seeing that vision or wanting to be on board, and Nan's kind of getting on board and being like, yeah, I believe in this. And you want to kind of have skin in the game though, not just, oh, I believe in that, that's cool. But I want to see this happen. And I remember just feeling that deep belief in what Daniel was doing and what we could be doing together as well. And it was very in line. I mean, it's a long story, but I started out pre-med going to college, but, came out with this double major in English and Spanish literature. So I started to have this gravity of interest toward the humanities. But anyways, it was something I saw in him that I believed in. And I wanted to be a part of seeing that come to fruition. And so that's, I think, how OG Rose really was originated. I saw his work and I said, I want to read this. I want to read all of it. I want to read as much of it as I can. And he was looking to have some feedback. So we began we began as me basically just reading his work and editing it. And conceptually editing, grammar edits, all of that, but really having the conversations around the work and the vision of it, and like the trying to stick the landing of the pieces. And so that's how it all began. And here we are. I mean, we'll be married 10 years in June, but we met in 2008, and we're friends for many years, and kind of went from being friends to like, hey, I think we're gonna get married one day. That was me. And he was like, sounds great. It's a very unconventional story, but yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, incredible, unique story. And I'm so glad that he allowed me to get on board with him, because I love I mean, to be honest, I just love what we're doing, and what I get to be a part of, or we get to be a part of too, and knowing people like yourselves. And so I hope that answers the question. We've definitely moved more into philosophy because we found that kind of the liminal web, right, where people are having these really genuine conversations. And our literature and our fiction has always been, I would say, like the undergirding has always been philosophical, so it was just made sense to kind of hash out some of the theory in terms of what was behind a lot of our fiction. So I hope that kind of communicates, OG Rose.
Yeah, that does. And I put up on the screen, by the way, a little slideshow of that amazing image of the two of you, I think, out there in the field with the trees behind you. And it says the Garner Opperman,
Yeah,
what is it? What is it?
Garner Rose.
Opperman Garner. Yeah.
Opperman Garner Rose. So it has nothing to do with being like original gangsters. So, we might be closet original gangsters. I like to do lo-fi rap. No, but seriously, we had no idea that OG meant that, or like it started to become this kind of colloquial sort of phrase. So for us, it was my maiden name, Opperman, then our last name, Garner, and then Rose is my middle name, my grandmother's name. And it was just, that's what we like, that sound of that name as a pen name. And then, it's just hilarious because I was like, OG, like we need to get girls and like some big old, chain necklaces.
I think you need to start. You guys probably have a great future as SoundCloud rappers if you could just get some face tattoos, like
you like the tattoos here and here, yeah.
drink some codeine. I don't know. I think you'd be off to a good start.
Well, really quick, our friend Jacob Kashir, he's also known as Culture Pilgrim. He actually did a rap, and it had Daniel it was just an excerpt from one of their talks, and it was like it closed out the song with this kind of like short little monologue bit there from Daniel, and it was super cool. And I feel like, hey, there might be some potential in the music industry to do this sort of stuff.
That's what we should all start doing, is start advertising ourselves as like intellectual clips that can be put into otherwise dumb songs, Yeah.
Daniel does have bars. Daniel has bars for sure.
Bars for days, yeah. And it's a really great combo when like my friend Culture Pilgrim, his rhymes are super, super deep and beautiful and like interesting. And so it's like, oh, it's such a great combo. Like I love it so much. And so yeah, anyways, and then again, Daniel just spitting bars constantly. So yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question about being a woman, because you are, by all like appearances, at least, just like a woman. Like I don't know how to say this, like, but like you're our mother, you are a wife. I'm sure you're all kinds of things outside of that. You're also half of this project, but you're appearing in the theory scene, as you said, the liminal web, as we would say, the underground theory scene. And you kind of stand out. Like Anne was like, oh my God, like she's like a woman. Like, it's not me that's saying that. Like, by the way, it's Anne who was like, she's kind of just like a nice lady. Like, what the hell? Like, kind of like surprised because this space is like 98% like guys. And I'm curious what that's been like for you, and what you would say to other women who are interested in theory, kind of outside looking in, but also kind of like, there's a lot of dudes in there.
No, it's a great question, and thank you. I take that as a compliment to being called a woman.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that it is a very interesting question, and Layman Pascal had a great conversation with Naomi. I'm forgetting her last name now. It might be Wright or something like that. And he was asking that question of like, why do you think there's like so many dudes? And like where the women, I think that's what the talk was maybe even called. Great conversation. Definitely recommend checking it out on Integral Stage. I think that for me, I mean, to me, I always feel like, I think that women are maybe a little more prone to find their sense of, I don't know how to put this, but kind of where they maybe have ways to find a place to fit in like the sort of the general mainstream. I feel like for a lot of the dudes that are on these spaces, like they sort of feel a little bit more like oddballs. And I think like for the women who are a little bit more okay with acknowledging their own oddballness, if I can use that term, they'll like, there's going to be a wonderful place for them here. I never, like, to me personally, I never think of it as like, oh, it's like all these men and where are the ladies? I'm like, lady, I'm saying that to the ladies, like, ladies, step up. You know what I mean? Like you can do this too, like, get in there, ask questions, be vulnerable, read, like think through things yourself too, and stop making it out to be like, oh, these guys are so like just sort of being all high and mighty with their intellectualism. No, they're literally just trying to ask how to like be a full human being. Like that's going to benefit you. So stop making it like this, oh, you're just doing your thing and I just, I can't, I like you belittle yourself so much. Stop. You are capable of that too. And start believing in that and stop worrying about the fact that there's majority men. Like, so what then, just if you really are interested and genuine about like wanting to learn, or just like being kind of able to step in and say, okay, maybe I'm kind of judging this as like male dominant and they're being kind of whatever. Stop, let that go and just step in and see what they're talking about, like see what they're actually doing. And yeah, maybe you still might reach the same conclusion, but at least you try to see what they're all about and why they're doing this. And I think like that's more, that's a little harsh, I'm sorry, but I do think there's something about where the ladies need to be able to step up and stop seeing it as like, oh, that's like that thing you do, that is sort of like makes me feel stupid. Well, stop. Why do you, he's not making you feel stupid. If he is, then he's a bad dude and he's not genuinely doing theory, in my opinion, So I just think that like, I think there's a really rich field of like ladies who are thinking genuinely, and you might find them more on Substack. You might find them more in that kind of like creative writing philosophy matrix of like the Instagram. Sometimes like they're there. They just maybe aren't always, they might not always be on the like some of the YouTube spaces or whatever. But yeah, I think that's kind of how I approach it. And for me, it's just like, get in there, like just do it. And you can always find reasons to think about like, oh, I haven't read enough, right? Or what if I sound stupid? But the whole point is like, you need to be able to, one, be cultivating your own, like, what do you care about? Like, what gets you lit up and makes you excited to think and read and research on your own? And then also just be in the spaces and hear what that is for other people. And so anyways, that's kind of my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah, it seems like at the university, there's this like, oh, we need to like lower the bar for people who are behind or don't feel or feel a little uncertain or insecure about their capacities when it comes to this thing, versus I think like the more the truly empowering approach is to say, if I can do this, anyone can do this. Okay, I'm not fucking smart. I'm not smart. I'm not even very disciplined. But there's something here, and hoping that my personality doesn't get in the way of that. I think for a lot of people, it actually helps them connect with the ideas, but in some cases, I'm sure the personality does get in the way. But no, I think there is like this being put off because it's a bunch of dude bros thing, but also we've got the fucking coolest women in the scene for sure at Theory Underground. We really do. And some of them are subscribers, some of them are patrons, some of them only attend the lectures like while commuting to their job, so they're listening after the fact. And in a lot of cases, they're just not going to be as obsessive, because in a lot of cases, the guys or like recovering addicts who from their 20s who are like in their 30s getting into theory and trying to live the good life and figure out why they were crazy and like get it together, right? And it's like women are generally a bit more balanced in their 20s. They don't have so much to make up for, you know, so there's like a little bit less of. But Nance, I'm curious if you have anything that you would want to add to this, or if there's a question you want to turn it into.
No, I just like on the whole woman thing, like there in my relationship with my partner, it always is a balance, because I know I can be overbearing, I can be overwhelming, I can unintentionally take up space. And I try not to do that, but also like my partner is pretty aware of the fact that like it's not malicious, like it is just like this kind of genuine overflowing of energy and excitement and investment on my part. And she's come a long way with her comfort level with like just engaging with thought. Like five years ago, we would be at the dinner table talking about something, and you know, my voice would boom and everyone, like the kids and her, would kind of just be quiet and listen. And it was very kind of domineering, but now that it's much more of a give and take. And I love to see it. Yeah. Because like being a man and the problems of all that, like, sure, there are problems we all need to be aware of, but no, like we can all come to the table as equals and be like, I just want to engage. I apologize if I speak up and if I get animated and excited. And yeah, to just be able to come as equals and engage. And I think it's great. And I think you and Daniel do a fantastic job of modeling. And like I've been encouraging my partner to come along and just engage more. And she's like, she reads books and she watches most of what we put out on YouTube, but she still doesn't feel comfortable joining the conversation. And it is a shame, you know, I wonder how much we've missed just because people have been timid.
Yeah, no, that's so good, Nance, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it made me think of two things. I mean, honestly, that timidity is long ingrained from much of like, to be honest, just traditional schoolwork or institutional school, you know, just from the school setting, from the dynamic, from the, you know, pupil, the pupils and teacher dynamic, that fear of like asking a stupid question, even though you're told there's no stupid questions, you know, like all of that, it really, really does get, I mean, it's a pretty profound influence on people, which is hard, really hard to get to the place where you feel more at ease and more comfortable, more confident. You might not be certain about what you're saying, but you could be confident, which is a distinction Daniel has made that's really helpful. The other thing too is I think that idea of just the ability to come to the table. I like that just as an image too of everybody being able to converse. Conversation is really hard, you know. It's hard not to get defensive. It's hard not to start thinking, like, letting all of our insecurities can sometimes come up, and it's like, you know, where I think at least for the stories I've heard from how women can respond to men doing theory, there it seems to be that way, where there's just a lot of kind of insecurities around this topic, where you start getting in defensive mode when you're really just being actually invited. And so it takes both parties to be able to get into that invitational, participational dynamic, where this isn't about anyone being right or wrong. It's about the exploration. It's about, oh, that's interesting, I hadn't thought about that. Oh, you know, and it's also something that seems to be like, it needs to be kind of, again, an invitation. If it's too much, like, there can be times when it's helpful to say, what do you think? But sometimes that doesn't even work, right? Because it's just like, I don't know, I don't want to, you know. And so it's like, it's just kind of offering it and seeing if it's something that the person kind of wants to come around to or not. And they may or they may not. But I think, like, for us, I mean, we, even at the dinner table, I mean, it's such a sweet thing, because we can be, I mean, this is like the way talking about ideas and kind of theoretical things, but also how it relates to the concrete life. This is just how Daniel and I talk all the time, you know, and we talk with our kids. I mean, the kids listen, and then they have questions, and then there's this opportunity of like, just hearing what they think about it. And that's really neat. Kids can do that. Kids can absolutely do that. And I think they love that chance to get to participate as well. And yeah, I think it's totally possible because, I feel very blessed to see it in real life. Like it can happen, and it makes a big difference because sometimes people get all like, "Oh, but what does philosophy have to do with real life?" And it's so abstract. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is so concrete. It will literally make you a better person to those around you, and that is important because, like I said, conversation is very hard. That's why people just try to do the small talk. But even that's kind of like can be a landmine of its own, like it can present landmines of its own. But it's like a sustained conversation can be very challenging, but it's also so beautiful and enriching. And so I think that for philosophy is a means by which to cultivate those skills of knowing when to talk, when to be quiet, how to be invitational in your conversation. And to me, like that's what it's all about, because I think there is so much wonder in life, and that's what philosophy hopefully can cultivate and invite people to participate in. And that, to me, like that bolsters relationships, really, So, yeah.
The program will resume shortly, right after this DIY commercial that is not for any sponsor other than ourselves. Thank you for watching.
Whether we are already fully in the grip of the techno-capital AI singularity or not, we likely feel as though there's not much we can do.
As allies of future generations, we aren't giving up so easily.
To quote the author of Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front, we wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what our life and our children's lives may be.
This fear is not new. The question of technology, media, and institutions became unavoidable in the 20th century. Yet when we think of institutions, the most radical critiques people have encountered came from either Michel Foucault or Jürgen Habermas. These thinkers towered over the theory scene in the 1970s and 80s as radicals took their long march through the institutions.
When it comes to theories of social change, the tendency is to put our hopes in leaving the existing institutions, the current order failing, or some overnight revolution to bring us salvation. Otherwise, we lean in and do the best we can with what's afforded by the existing institutions. Reform or revolution, nothing ever changes, so we keep putting our hopes in education.
So progressives say, if only more people had access to better education, then that would solve the problems. But they have not thought seriously enough about the nature of our institutions, or this thing called education that they offer.
The most radical critiques of schooling that teachers encounter issue from Paulo Freire, Bell Hooks, and Henry Giraud, but none of these ever got to the root of institutions themselves. The theorist who did this was Ivan Illich.
Gaining brief stardom in the 70s, Ivan Illich was the father of the deschooling movement, inspiring hundreds of radical schools and generations of homeschooling parents. But this characterization of his work as the anti-school guy was his ultimate demise, for that only takes account of a surface level of his work. Illich was immediately misunderstood and quickly abandoned.
The issue goes far beyond schools. We spend our entire lives mediated through institutions that totalize, instrumentalize, and reduce humans, all of our possibilities, to something predictable, calculable, and exchangeable, easy to control. The interests of state and capital here overlap entirely. Our desires are thus turned into commodities and our time energy into labor power. Illich doesn't stop here, though, for institutions are not the whole picture.
When people think of schooling today, they think of studying for exams, not learning for the sake of learning. When people think of hospitals, they think of treating illnesses, not human-to-human care and well-being. When people think of transportation, they think of speed and efficiency, not the possibility of sustained, regular, and meaningful connections. When people think of reading, they think of collecting information, not lingering with an idea. The move from schooling to Schole requires serious inquiry into the conditions of possibility for this mode.
I'm calling for a sincere and earnest revival of Illich. While most introductions to Illich limit their engagement to his earlier works, a series of polemics against schooling and institutionalized consumer society, I want to go deeper and lead us to a more robust understanding of who and what a human is for Illich. With his help, we will reopen the question of what we are, what we can be, and the types of lives we are willing to give our time and energy to bring into being, if there are to be humans in the future.
This course begins on June 13th and goes through July 4th, 2024. It meets on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can enroll at theoryunderground.com/courses/Illich-1, or just click on the link in the description. For those who just want to spend a month really thinking about schooling and institutions, this is a fantastic way to do so. But for those who are looking to go deeper with a community of truth seekers who are going beyond the current theory scene to form an intellectual milieu, this is a fantastic way to do so, because the Theory Underground 2024 conference at the end of October 23rd through 27th is going to have special panels for presentations related to this course. Any student of this course will have opportunities to present, and those presentations can ultimately culminate in submissions that may be accepted into the anthology we are doing on the critique of schooling and education, to be published either at the end of this year or at the beginning of 2025.
Thank you.
We hope to see you there.
I do want to ask. I've talked to several other people about this, parents who are of kind of our age group. I've made it I've attempted to like never lie to my kids, to always kind of be honest with them and either tell them, you know, like, this is what's going on and let me take 45 minutes to explain this to you, or just tell them, no, and you don't need to know right now. I'll tell you when you're ready for it. Like, I feel like that's better than trying to come up with some justification and some like artificial framework that will eventually kind of collapse around them and make them distrust me. But I've received feedback from some people, and they're like, well, don't you think you should allow them to have some fantasy? Like, and I don't know, like I maybe it was because I was so disillusioned, like I felt so lied to as a kid, but I do take this hard line of like, no, either take the time to explain it or tell them they don't need to know, and they'll get, I don't know, just what do you think on that? Like, am I being maybe too ascetic or something with them? Should I give them more fantasy?
Well, that's a great question, Golly. I feel like I think there's something about children. Well, it would depend on what age range we're talking about here, but children are really great at being just naturally having a natural wonder for the world, more or less, right? Hopefully they do, because that is actually just what they are, unless it's been completely hit out of them from, whatever age. And that's very tragic, in my opinion. So they have like the sense of fantasy, wonder, I wouldn't say illusion, but in a good sense, like the sense of, it's not there's a way in which that is their mode. Like, they're good at that. They're really good at that. It's an illusion that I'm a turtle, but now I get to crawl around on my belly with a laundry basket on my back, dude. Like, this is amazing. Like, and I just love kids for that ability that they just do these things, and like they take their place seriously. You know what I mean?
Nance like 5 years ago was probably like, get that shell off your back.
Turtle.
That's not real.
That's a laundry bucket. No, I think play and that type of fantasy it's beautiful, and like to engage with them is also fun. Like, me as an adult, I'll get down and put the laundry bucket on too. And like, it is so beautiful. And I count parents among the luckiest people in the world to be able to have that.
Yeah. Do you kind of mean like in terms of just realizing that oh my gosh, we're like, we live in these systems that are kind of like not actually always out for it. Like kind of those things where, you know, as an adult, we have these veils taken off and we're like, oh my gosh. And it's like, is that the stuff you're talking about where kids might, you know, not wanting to be lying about that? Like what, yeah, I want to know more
Yeah.
concretely. Because
Yeah,
I can
like
address it better.
I guess the social fantasies that we maintain, things like Santa Claus, like I've always like, there's no Santa, there's no Easter Bunny, you have no future. Like that type of stuff.
We're all effed, yeah.
Yeah, like in very black pilled, but like I try to explain it to them, like it broke my heart when I found out I couldn't be at whatever I wanted to be. Like that was the line when I was a kid. You can do whatever you want to do. And it destroyed me. And so I've always tried to tell them, like, no, we are facing the end of the world. Things are horrible. But like not in a you should give up, not in a futile way, but trying to be realistic and be like, yes, you're gonna try hard, but you will fail. But that doesn't mean you should stop trying hard. But like still letting them be children and playing, but just very black pilled and maybe too cynical. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's a really tricky position as parents, right? We're always put in these positions like this is a hard decision because it's not just me and my life and how it impacts me, it impacts my children. And so the stakes feel very high. I think generally I think the approach that I take, and I don't know if I'm just kind of like, you know, the feminine softie that doesn't want to tell them like, hey, you know, the world's ending, you know, like I think there's a way in which talking about the concept of how things we live in a farm, so like there's a lot of kind of like garden illustrations for me that can convey the same point without it sounding too apocalyptic and scary.
Yeah,
because kids can really get scared about like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen. And now there's a healthy degree of being able to talk about that and show a type of confidence as the parent to say like it's going to be okay. Like even if stuff hits the fan, like there's something about it, like sure, and maybe that's a lie to say it's going to be okay, but there's a way in which it's like this radical, almost, I don't know, confidence and like that ultimately, I don't know why I'm thinking about Hegel now, but like there's this idea of the historic process just unfolding anyway. So don't get so worried about it because it is going to be okay, even though it might be difficult or it might be hard. And that sense of yourself as an adult being able to be playful, have that wonder and that hope, even in the midst of like stuff, you know, stuff blowing up, like it's, I think that can help them too. I think my approach is like, when those topics come up with Daniel, like, you know, sometimes there's an element of like, dude, we're screwed, right? Like there's that, but I think we try to talk about in terms of like, why is that? Because if we put on the why, we can maybe think about what we can do versus just like the constant we're screwed. Okay, well, great. Well, like then what? So yeah, I think putting the emphasis shift there where there's some acknowledgement of some stuff like not being great, but like to me it's a bit more of a helpful mode to focus on the why and the how, those questions and those considerations, because that's more that can still tap into the stakes, but also the play of it where you get into that mode. And I'll just speak really, really quick. I was pretty apocalyptic feeling, especially in light of like the events over the past couple of years in the world. And I feel like the only reason why I say this shift in emphasis is because for me, I got extremely paranoid. I got extremely, you know, like to the point where it was hard to function as a mother, thinking about what the heck have I done? Like I brought kids into this world and who knows what's going to happen? You know, and it just was terrifying, like asphyxiatingly terrifying. Philosophy was actually what got me out of being so certain about the future. And so we need to incorporate that uncertainty that philosophy provides to be able to get back to that place of, you know what? Yeah, that might be how things might go this way over here. I don't know, but I can't control that. All I can control is what I can do today. And
yeah, so absolutely.
I just want to speak that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's like
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
that's like when I had James Ellis from Hermetics on with Mikey a few days ago, and he's, you know, he was a big accelerationist, kind of a Landian. Besides Justin Murphy, he's like the biggest, you know, presence in that side of the internet, and he is now into like what he calls zero accelerationism, which he thinks that it's accelerating to a point of zero where it's like there will be a total collapse and blah, blah, blah. And part of that's based on like peak oil theory and just the idea that at an empirical level that we do not have the resources to sustain the life of the human population without insane catastrophe, blah, blah, blah. And I was hearing this word empirical, and he's over there in the UK. And so of course I'm just like, this positivist. Because it's like, to me, it's like, man, I've grown up my whole life people saying like, oh, there's no water on other planets, and oh, it's too far to travel to, it would take people their whole lives to get to Mars, and oh, we would never be able to land on asteroids, and oh, and then and as a kid, I was always just like, yeah. But I see in sci-fi movies stuff that's already real. It's already real. And at that time, I know you I'm just a little kid. I wasn't cussing, but I'm just like, I know you guys, I know that you guys would have probably said that the cell phone was impossible too. And I remember when they were like, yeah, it would never be economically feasible for people to be making phone calls from their watches, even if it was possible. And it's just like, dude, it's like, yeah, in the 80s, everybody thought we'd have flying cars, but for some reason, there's just like this weird, like what's possible, what's impossible. And for me, I'm just like, I don't think we know that so well. I just don't. So I like that you say that philosophy's kind of actually giving you more doubt when it comes to that. But really quick, I want to transition here into the question about homeschooling and lifelong learning, because, and I'll just, just in terms of like a little bit of a autobiographical detail. This isn't some secret on the channel or something like that. I just don't typically divulge it, but it's like, yeah, I grew up in a homeschool environment. It wasn't the best. My mom did everything she could, but teaching was not exactly her cup of tea. She liked to garden. She liked to do her network marketing business things. She liked to do these things that were not the, homeschool thing, yet at the same time, we were being homeschooled, which in a sort of sense, it's weird, like I grew up really not liking it. In fact, I think only in the last few years through philosophy have I come to like the standpoint of, no, this has set me up in unique ways. So there are advantages that it gave me, but they were hard won. And the hardest part was just really wanting to have friends, really wanting to get involved with sports, wanting to get involved with music, wanting to be able to study things from people who are passionate about them. I didn't know that part yet. I knew that I didn't have help when it came to questions on my homework. And I was just expected to figure it out. And in a lot of cases, I just cheated. And so, and that kind of set me up to have to do a lot of making up for lost time later when I went to college late when I was 23. Okay. And I spent a good period of time just partying and hanging out and working between the homeschool life and the college life, so I was already pretty socialized by the time I was in college. And that socialization is something that a lot of homeschool kids miss out on, of course. It's kind of a stereotype at this point, like, oh, the awkward homeschool kid who has who sounds the same as his or her siblings because they all they have their own little dialect because they don't get out much, that's a thing. And I understand that there's better and worse ways of doing homeschool, but that's kind of where with Theory Underground as like a 5-year project to get to develop me to be able to write the books to the parents who are going to be the parents of children who will be 25 and 30 years, like as thinking this intergenerational way and developing resources so that those kids who will be 25 and 30 years can be lifelong learners who take on the challenges they're going to have to be able to take on. On the one side, that gives me the time, even though we don't have time, to be able to breathe a little bit and just work on the craft. But on the other side, it's also preparing me to have my own children. It's also preparing me to hopefully develop some kind of a network with other parents who are also, if not homeschooling, then doing cooperative things within and outside of institutions, which I kind of think is just going to be the way it goes. But with that said, homeschooling is not the answer. That's what I get to in the Timenergy book. And I know that you read that and you actually thought that was inspiring, even though you're a homeschooler. And so I wanted to give you like an opportunity to talk on like why did you find that chapter, is homeschooling the answer, so useful when you yourself are a homeschooling mother?
Yeah, great question, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I thought that for me, I was really touched by it because I felt like you were so spot on with a lot of the things you're identifying about homeschooling these days, how reactionary it can be, how it doesn't necessarily provide the atmosphere for Schole, right? And I think that was why it really, spoke to me. Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a part where you said something like, maybe it's the best we can do. Maybe homeschooling might be the best we can do, but it might not be the answer. And I don't know if it's necessarily the answer en masse for people either. At the same time, I think that there's a way in which, we if we're going to try to think of how to do things differently or a different mode of learning, then it may look for me, I feel like it may look like might not be necessarily looking like homeschool. It might, in our case, it does, but it may look like just the cultivation of having some more books around in your house, being a person who can actually like learn stuff yourself as an adult, learning something totally new and sharing that process with your children, showing your own kind of vulnerabilities of like, I don't know stuff either, but I could figure it out. I can try, and so I think that's possible for anyone. Like, I mean, sure, there's an element of degree where it's like that. Some of that might take a little bit of needing to plan, like go to an old, there's book sales though. You can get a ton of books for $15. You can get a bunch of books. Just keep them around in your house, and keep them where it's accessible, where the kids see them, right? Where they see you reading now and again, or as much as you can. I mean, it speaks to so much in terms of just like, how do we view free time? How do we view it all? I do think something problematic about the institution of the school day and the structure is quite problematic in terms of communicating that because it's hilarious, because lifelong learners was a quote, was a mantra in my education too, because I went to public school. I liked it, but I also did really well in it. I got like teacher's pet award. I loved like learning, and I did well at it, and I didn't really think a whole lot about it then. I just knew that I did well. I could please people with it for the most part. And that's why I enjoyed it. I also had my twin sister there with me. So even when there's all of the silly middle school shenanigans and drama of girls being kind of, no offense, but kind of catty, and, oh, like, who's going to be your friend next year? And you're like, aren't we friends? That sort of deal. I still had my twin sister, right? I also had like a sense of, oh, I've also got friends at church, so I don't have to just rely on friends, at school. I got my family, and I've got me and Marilee's playing fairies in the woods, So I think there's something about the structure of school. Again, it's just that, what, I liked it and I did well, but I'll tell you this, in terms of socializing, it was fine, but I definitely learned some stuff that wasn't great, like in terms of relating, and even relating to men wasn't the best stuff I learned there. And then also, I definitely had a huge learning curve on trying to actually learn for myself and not feel bad about just wanting to write poetry. And so that was, it took a long time. I still struggle with it, to be honest, sometimes, of just being like, yes, you can say yes to yourself and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to write or what you're trying to create, So, that's for us, for Daniel and I, that's a huge part of why we do. I don't think you should do homeschool in the sense of doing school at home. I think you should do Schole. I think you should do atmosphere creation. And I think it's possible. I know it's not everybody can do it, but I think we have to start thinking about even the little things we can do that can make a big difference. And with that, it's a lot about cultivating intrinsic motivation. That's why. The reactionary, oh, we're just going to homeschool because we don't like what they're teaching in school. Like, that's all about content. It's not thinking about form. It's not thinking about the medium. So that's why, for us, it's easy to just get pegged though. Oh, you just homeschool for this, or you whatever. I don't, to be honest, I don't care really what people are going to say, because people are going to say all sorts of stuff. And some of it might be right, some of it might be wrong. But for us, the main thing is intrinsic motivation, and trying to learn, in real time, how to cultivate that, for yourself and for your children, how to create the conditions for that. And we really, I just had to give a little shout out to blogging again, part 2.1, which is coming out tomorrow. Thank you. And we really, really get into this a lot with the book, because it's a fun, it's such a good part too. And when you talk about this, Dave, we're like cultivating, what was it, the flame of one's own interest is one of the greatest gifts and one of the greatest things we should be prioritizing. And yet we make no attempt, or we don't really make much room for that, or we don't really make that even an aspiration of education, probably because it's just too impossible. Like, how do you do that for 50 students in your class, or whatever it is? It's like, how do you do that? But the cultivating of one's own flame is everything. And it really gets into this question of intrinsic motivation. How do you cultivate that without unintentionally influencing it, right? So anyways, I just wanted to say all that. I hope that kind of speaks to it. So yeah, love your chapter. You're identifying some super important things that are in real time happening, because I talk to a lot of moms, public school and private school and homeschooling wise, and I hear things, and I can definitely say that there's it's very challenging if people aren't themselves trying to learn or or at least attempt to be themselves a lifelong learner as an adult, to have that communicated to the children, because otherwise it just becomes school at home. We don't that we already have that over there. Like, you're just doing it over here.
And the thing is
doesn't solve the
you will not be able to do school from home as well as the school can do it. So if you're just going to do school from home, just let the institution take care of it, because at least there is support and a distribution of authority, meaning that you're not the principal and the counselor and the teacher. And I think kids need opportunities to have multiple kinds of influences, so that they can kind of not all teaching is this one way or whatever. Because different kids will, like the same kid is going to think this history teacher is amazing, and the next kid's like, no, but also this English teacher is. And so different people are unlocked and different capacities and intensities by different interactions. And so I've become very interested in the last 15 years by the differences in different people's homeschooling upbringings, because they're not the same. In fact, they're all extremely different. Now, high schools are basically, they can be very different, but I like to ask people about their experiences, and I like to ask people about how it's affected them. And I like to kind of ask people that a million other things that give me a sense for how this schooled person, whether they were successful or not within that institution, how it actually impacted them outside of it. And in a lot of cases, it turns them into sort of inept, listless creatures who are not passionate about ideas, who think that they have to work until they die, who think that they either deserve low wages or they deserve a 6-figure salary, and other people should have to clean up after them. That's what it produces. Functionally, that is what the form produces. But what you're talking about the content versus form, I was thinking about this is exactly what I'm trying to get at in that chapter. The form is what it does to time and energy itself, right? And Schole, for those who don't know, is about leisure time, and the kind of, but active leisure, the kind of actively directed leisure time energy that has tutelage and helps you find your talents and build on them. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to now maybe segue that into sort of a question. It's like a threefold question. So there's Ivan Illich. You all at OG Rose did some stuff on Ivan Illich. We at Theory Underground are doing something on Ivan Illich with Brian come June. And you were just in a different course as well at Theory Underground. You were in the Leon Brenner's Clinical Structures of Psychoanalysis and Autism course. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, here you are getting to do that course at the same time that you're homeschooling, and how that, I just imagined, because you seemed really into it. I'm like, that's what my mom needed. She actually needed adult support networks of people who care about these things because they care about these things, and also with getting together with other people who care about it. And so, but maybe I'm projecting a little bit, and I just kind of wanted to ask you, how is it, having your own courses with adults, going to Philosophy Portal events, doing stuff with Theory Underground? How is it as a homeschool mother juggling all of that with the practical day-to-day rearing of children?
Yeah. Well, for the audience, we homeschooling 3 kids, and it's I think that for me personally, the ability to have spaces with the adults to have the conversations and to learn is, for me, it's everything, right? Like it's so fun to me. I love it. I crave it. I desire to, I'm just reading books throughout the day now and again. Now we've got extra laundry, maybe not so much. Maybe I'll be listening to something. But I also am like, I've got these little people, these little humans all around me, like looking at me, talking with me. I'm talking with them. We're doing stuff. We're doing our, like this morning, we had this funny breakfast idea, Haven and I, last night, our son, oldest son, and he was like, he had this idea somehow of like doing, because we're going to make Belgian waffles. So he's like, let's do an oversized breakfast, And so I made this giant invitation on like this old, just rolled up cardboard paper thing, like some giant invitation about like coming to this oversized breakfast. And we like made a, giant egg, giant waffle. And it was so fun and silly and enjoyable. And he like got dressed up because the invitation, I like themed it as like a kind of, a herald with like, I played like herald music from like, trumpeting and stuff. So he like dressed up in his little tux and came down for breakfast. And then the other kids were like laughing, and, Grace went and got her dress, and just hilarious. And, we looked for like vases to drink water out of and stuff like that. So, there's all of that. No, I'm serious. Yeah, it's hilarious. I love the ingenuity of kids and just what they come up with. So yeah, there's all of just the very real everyday, day in, day out life that you need to attend to, or at least I need to attend to as a mother. And then there's homeschooling, which means it kind of reminded me of like what you were saying, Dave, when you were talking about your class at university, where sometimes you have to just kind of say like, look, dude, like dudes, dudettes, like there's this kind of minimum we sort of need to be able to do. Okay. Beyond that, like if you don't, I don't know, you might not like doing that very much. I understand. I don't always like doing the dishes, but gotta be done. So there's a degree of that, which might be more what Daniel will put it, what Daniel and I talk about as like bestocentrism, right? Like it's bestowed upon you that you must do this sort of menial task or sort of menial like educational thing that you're like, I don't even see the point of like making sure my handwriting's good. Like we're all going to be typing anyways one day. You like, and these are real arguments you'll hear. I'll hear from my eldest son, and it's like, I get you, dude. I really do. But like, let's get that done. Let's get that sort of taken care of. And then for me, it's like, let's just feed those resources of the things that they're interested in. Literally give them, like, go to the library, get some books on the stuff that they're really interested in. Start to seek out if there might be somebody in your community who they can maybe learn from or learn with, or, and like, and again, it's has to be kind of age appropriate where they at, and how do you know the person is somebody you have trust with. But like there's a kind of way in which for me the practical is doing that, like learning to read, write, do our math, but also being able to like have like generous free time, in the sense of not just free play, but free time with the actual materials you need to do the stuff you really like to do. Like for Haven, it's coding, electronics. So I have to learn some stuff too, because that's not the way my brain works. His brain works in a way that's, wow, like logic stuff. I'm just like, what? Like I have no idea, but I need to learn to some degree so that I can converse with him about that, and like learn alongside him and provide the right resources for him to be able to, build and create and code and like do all of that stuff. So, and a lot of that, like some of it might, you may have to invest a little bit, like in terms of money, but you could get maybe a $50 electronics set and like get some books from the library, and you've gotten some runway there to start working and building and doing stuff like in that line of, in that area of interest. So and then again, like just having books around really helps, because if you're not like hammering stuff all the time about you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and like you got to switch to this, you got to switch to this, you can leave these more open times where you can hopefully cultivate a love of reading. And look, if the kids like reading comic books, great. Like that's okay. Let them read the comic books. Don't worry about, are they ever going to get into like other stuff or what, they're like learning to love to read through reading comic books. Let them read the comic books. And so I think like I'm just trying to think of very practical things of how this looks on the ground, homeschooling. And the other thing is too, thinking about blocks of time throughout the day. So there's a sense of a rhythm, because you need rhythm just to make sure you get your, you eat your meals and nobody gets too cranky, like, and so just thinking about that for me is helpful as well. And I think I hope it helps them, but we do try to leave quite a bit of that free time, that free play, that playing outside. I mean, we're very thankful to live where we can just go outside or walk down to the creek and, make our own little adventures or foraging adventures and stuff like that. So when it comes to me doing the classes and the talks and stuff like that, like, I'm not sure from their perspective what they think about it. I don't know, but I think they do seem to enjoy watching me like doing stuff that I'm doing, that I'm making, like they seem to really like enjoy that. And some of it I can invite them into very well. Like, I do like to just play around with like lo-fi rap. So they're like, hey mom, like you should try your rap to this beat. So then I will. And like, then I just hear them kind of like playing around with stuff like that too, or like learn, and so that's sort of fun. And then when it comes to the talks, a lot of the talks that we have on the Zoom sphere will also bleed into or feed into the conversations Daniel and I are having at dinner or at lunch. And so they'll hear that stuff, and they'll ask their own questions, or they'll sort of engage or interject with what they're thinking.
They're like, mommy, why does Nance always end every one of his speeches with the world's gonna end and we're all fucked anyway?
We're doomed.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Today I learned that we're doomed. There's no hope for the race of man.
Yeah.
So funny. No, but I mean, I do, like, as much as I can, I also will just like, I'll put the Bluetooth speaker, the bigger one, like like a Bose mini speaker or whatever, and just like let the conversation play in the background, or like with the Spanish books, like just let it play in the background, So I don't know, like, look, I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job or not. I'm sure I'm failing on many fronts, but I think that if you worry about trying to do it like perfectly or the right way, or like, oh, well, now you're doing too much home and not too much institution, I think you're just, it's a mess, and it's very existential as a parent, because these decisions feel really, really weighty. I think you have to just, you have to really just get a sense inside of you of like what you feel you need to be doing for your kids, and to the degree that you can do that, and do your best and learn from mistakes too. Like, I've had to learn, this doesn't work so well. They wouldn't work so well. So we're going to try this. We're going to try this. We're going to change it up, and we're going to try to do this. And each child is quite different. So what works for the one child may not work for the other child. And so just trying to think about that and learn from what works and what doesn't work, I think can really facilitate, like, just being like letting your kids see a process unfold and being a part of that. Like, you need to be able to, I think that's actually important. And I love when I get the questions and I'm like, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. What makes you think, like, what made you have that idea, or what, like, just, I think it's important, not, especially even if they bring up something that's kind of out there, or like it's something maybe you don't even necessarily agree with that perspective. You just say, oh, that's interesting. That's fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Kids are very able to engage in philosophy, not because they should do philosophy, but because they're little philosophers, they are. And so just like letting them be that and engage in that is great. And me doing it on the talk side and like being able to participate in the Brenner class, which was incredible, and being able to do the things like at Philosophy Portal, I hope just continues to feed back, like, yeah, I'm learning stuff too, and I think that, like, yeah, it does sometimes mean that I'm on a video and like a kid might jump on me because kids are behind me, or like I'm multitasking, but hey, like, I think that's that's great. Like, that's, we're real humans with real lives, and it's good to me. Like, I appreciate you guys so much, and being a space, and also Philosophy Portal, and like these spaces that allow me to be like a mom and be able to be here too, even if it means that I may have a little one come up to me and ask for like an apple, so yeah.
Well, and we really appreciate you. You do help me remember that there's not just a bunch of burnt out 35 to 40-year-old dudes in this space. I mean, I do have quite a few women who are like listening to the lectures from afar and while they're doing other things, but you actually turn your camera on while you're doing stuff around the house while the kids, and I like that because it helps me remember, oh yeah, this is potentially over a Bluetooth speaker for kids. And like, there's going to be some degree of like, well, we're heathens, we're always going to be, but also like, no, but the path this is all going towards is this multi-generational project. And so keeping kids in mind, keeping parents in mind, and remembering that anything that doesn't keep kids and parents in mind is suicidal, anti-civilizational, dead end. There is no future there. And anybody who thinks that it is a future or that it's a plausible way forward is wasting their time, wasting our time. And ultimately, I really appreciate you for coming on here, for being a great example. And we have to, at this point, close it out. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of the bullshit and just want to get down to it. Big ideas, rigorous thinking, and ultimately liberation from necessity.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation. Theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. Besides a commitment to publishing certain underground theorists and popularizing certain fundamental concepts, we have toured the United States and are touring Europe to promote our ideas, courses, and publications. You've been reading Underground Theory.
Amazing book. I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first, obviously, I have to get freed myself, so the two of us are able to do this because, as Mikey said, build it and they will come. Well, I tried and I built a website and platform. I had my own app and everything, but it's been really buggy and it's more than one person can handle, and that's, a really good lesson for me. And so for now, what we're doing is moving it to a temporary intermediary platform until we are able to get some more serious funding. And ultimately, we want to be in a place like this, a real brick and mortar digital nomadic mecca where people can come from all over the world. But also, the app was really expensive, and so by quitting it, I am now able to save a lot of money, and with the help of my patrons and the students at Theory Underground, especially the monthly subscribers, I am officially able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. So thank you so much, everybody. This is one huge step forward With that said, several subscribers did not migrate from the now defunct app to the new setup, and I'm guaranteed to lose people over time. So please, if you want to get involved, become a subscriber. If you're not even sure what this is all about but are just curious, then I've added Tier 0 and Tier 1 for very basic kinds of access to what we are doing behind the scenes. If you don't have any time or energy to get involved, but you do have some money to help support this project from afar, then please check out the Patreon. My patrons over at Patreon make the podcast and public YouTube possible. Thank you. As for once-in-a-lifetime events, check out the new poster for the American Idiots Theory Underground European Book Tour. Paris, Brussels, Berlin, Vienna, Linz, Krakow, Glasgow, London, and Oxford from April 27th to May 25th, 2024. 2 events are already fully booked out. Save a seat at an event by getting in contact with us ASAP. Finally, the call for proposals to our conference in Mexico.
What's up, everybody? TUCon 2024 update here. It's not happening in Mexico anymore, but it is still happening on October 24th through the 27th.
The change was made because a lot of the people that wanted to attend and that were expected to attend said they could probably afford to travel if they had more time advance notice. So save up for June 2025.
If you have to choose, right? Because this one that is happening this year is happening physically in Boise, Idaho, because we have a lot of collaborators and fellow travelers and co-instructors there. But you can attend virtually for this one. You won't be able to attend virtually next year. So yeah, if you have to choose, attend physically in 2025. The call for proposals already happened. The writing workshop for proposals already happened. You can still get the links to both of those. Just shoot us a message and ask for those links. We'll get you those. And the form goes live on June 1st, and the deadline is June 15th. So if you're attending physically, let me know ASAP.
Get in on it.
All right. Finally, last little thing here is to say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon. The Patreon is for people who are too busy to be students or subscribers at Theory Underground, but who want to see more of this free content on the podcast and YouTube channel for Theory Underground. You are the ones who see something of value in the free content being made available here, and you want to see more of it. Your patron pledges at Patreon are a real motivator for me, so thank you so much. Especially thanks to Marilyn Lawrence, Bert Vanderkar, Carl Vanderlip, Nikolai, Sahil Kumar, Zuxandra, Darian Large, Tyler Murphy, Max Mackin, Al, Algeri, Ben Rosenblum, Atlantic Airlines, Lewis, Matt Payne, Neil C., Simon Condon, Yiz, and Schwabkinson. Thank you.